The time has come in our program on this Wednesday for a chat with Pat.
Yes, and today we have with us Father Jerry Pokorsky. He's a priest from the Diocese of Arlington. He's also served as a financial administrator in the Diocese of Lincoln. He's trained in business and accounting, but he also holds a Master's of Divinity and a Master's of Moral Theology. He co-founded Credo and Adoramus, both organizations deeply engaged in authentic liturgical renewal, and he writes regularly for a number of Catholic websites, and that's what we're talking about today. He wrote an article for Catholic Culture, which I loved, Father Pokorsky. It's called Principles and Prudential Judgments. How you doing today?
Well, thank you. You're very kind. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good. Well, I love this because there is so much, I think, confusion in society about this first principles, prudential judgment. People don't know what to do. So can you kind of explain first principles to us and kind of how do we figure out what a first principle is?
Sure. The first principles are basically the summary of our faith. The creed, for example, will be the first principles, the Ten Commandments, and the precepts of the Our Father. I mean, the pillars of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. These are the first principles. More particularly, I think the Ten Commandments give us a better or clearer understanding of what first principles are, and then we apply those commandments to the concrete circumstances of life. And sometimes that's not very, very easy. Questions of just war, for example. These just war principles that the Church clusters around the Fifth Commandment, for example, are very difficult to apply to concrete circumstances. So the laity, that the responsibility of the laity to apply these principles to the concrete circumstances is what we need to keep in mind. The priest, generally, my job is to proclaim these principles. I can lurch a little bit into prudential judgments here and there, but for the most part, my job is to proclaim the principles in the gospel of Jesus Christ.
I love that because I think so often, when we stray from first principles, I always tell my deacon candidates when I teach moral theology that you need to understand prudential judgment is if you've got the basic principle, there could be many right ways to live that out, not just one. And so can you kind of help people understand then that if I'm trying to make a prudential judgment, how does that work with a first principle?
Well, the first thing, I mean, people ask me oftentimes for a solution. They say, Father, what should I do in this particular case? And, I oftentimes say that the prudence is a virtue that can't be delegated. Prudence belongs to the individual, and God's grace is guiding the person. As long as they begin with those first principles, find out what the Church teaches, find out what authentic morality is. And the authentic morality is sometimes very difficult to find these days. Go to the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Look at what the Church teaches in particular circumstances, and then ask the Holy Spirit, gifts of the Holy Spirit that we receive on confirmation, so that we have the grace and the insights to apply these to concrete circumstances. And prudence simply immediately dismisses all the evil choices as intrinsically evil choices. Those are off the table. And then of the remaining choices, prudence selects the best, is a virtue that selects the best option of the remaining morally good option, according to the circumstances. And that requires, to recognize that it's not infallible, recognize that requires a good deal of God's grace and responsiveness to his grace.
So, Father, you in the article, you use the Gospel of Luke to illustrate that. Can you share that and parse that out for our audience? Because it's wonderful.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. I was preparing for it the week before. I was looking at it and hey, wait a minute. when Jesus, somebody comes up to Jesus and says, "Hey, and tell my brother to share his inheritance with me." I mean, that is so off the wall, so funny. And then Jesus says, "Friend, who appointed me as your judge and arbitrator?" I'm not. And then he goes to the first principle. He says, "Take care to guard against all greed. For though one may be rich, man's life does not consist of possessions." So he establishes that first principle, and then you brothers, work it out work out these details, provided that you're not greedy.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course,
And
I applied it to different pastoral situations imaginary pastoral situations that a priest might use that same motif, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So that's
Those
it was kind of fun.
Those were great as you laid those out, because you did one on welfare, one on immigration, one on war, a life. Was there one of those that you thought, boy, this is my best one? Because they were all great.
Well, I I shouldn't say this, but I kind of look at the kinds of things that a lot of clerics weigh in on, and I targeted those things like welfare and. Well, there hasn't been a welfare spending program, for example, that the hierarchy doesn't like. And I'm thinking we're I guess that was probably, I would say that's my favorite.
Okay.
We've got this massive federal debt, and with this massive federal debt, we're contributing to it because we all want free stuff. So
right. Yeah.
I think that we forget that the laity have a whole lot to offer, and to apply these principles, greed and the desire for free stuff, to tame that with virtue in order to do the right thing.
Yeah. These I laughed, and yet they were so good. I mean, they were right on the money. So, Father, you talked earlier and you mentioned it, but I kind of want to know why you place principles in the clergy realm and why you place prudential judgment in the laity realm. I mean, is
Mostly
it just a matter of preaching?
That's what Jesus did.
Okay.
Jesus is proclaiming the gospel, and I was kind of thinking, did he have an opinion about the Roman rule? Did he have an opinion? He called Herod that fox. That's the only thing that I can think of when he talks politics. He called Herod that fox. Then with Pilate, he says, all power that you have comes from above. But he doesn't enter into these conversations of prudential judgments. He's proclaiming the gospel, proclaiming principles. So the gospel, all these first principles derive from the gospel, from Jesus himself. And Jesus doesn't get entangled. I'm sure he had an opinion, maybe with his buddies, with the apostles. Maybe he talked about the Roman rule and talked about the zealots. I mean, he called a couple of zealots to his band of brothers,
sure.
And the zealots were very much favor of the law, and they did a whole lot of terrible things over the previous 100 years or so. So anyway, but you never hear those positions, at least in the Gospels themselves. You never hear those. So I figure that that's where we have the first principles, the gospel, and driving from the gospel, we have the church packages the Ten Commandments and packages the creed and so on, and then we have the obligation to apply all this. And of course, the first is where Jesus says, "Friend, who appointed me as your judge and arbitrator." That's kind of the key that I played off of.
Yeah. And I loved it. I mean, because then you also, when you apply it in other situations, who appointed me your congressman? Who appointed me your foreign policy expert? I love these. These are great, Father, and it brings it home.
Thank you.
It brings it home.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us today, Father.
God bless all.
Thanks. Our guest today was Father Jerry Pokorsky, priest of Diocese of Arlington, served as a financial administrator in the Diocese of Lincoln. He has a master's in divinity, master's in moral theology. I will tell you, go to Catholic Culture and look at this article, Principles and Prudential Judgment, August 4th. It was written. It is very insightful, very enlightening for us today.